afterwards, but replace government with positive transparency. Israel as an imperfect oasis. We are imperfect. We are imperfect people, right? Just to change the paradigm a little bit about just the chest beating and the normal government line, etc. Just to wake people the fuck up a little bit, you know? And to talk the language of the internet and talk the language of SMS and be direct and be honest. Next. Positive psychology. Most popular class taught at Harvard. Tal Ben Shahar, Israeli psychologist, maybe you've heard of him, talks about positive psychology. What I suggest here is that we got to really increase our likability. Because, you know, Israelis on an individual level sometimes, when you talk about doing business with Israelis, a lot of Americans just refuse to even go there. So we have to work, to be likable as a country, we need to be more likable as people. That does not mean that we have to do away with our Israeli not being a friar, Israeli tough guy, Israeli resourceful, Israeli can do anything, because I think there's a role for that. I think there's a really big role for that. We can't deny it. A client once gave me a great adage that I use. It's sort of very cliche, but you know, our greatest strength is our greatest weakness. You guys heard that? Mm-hmm. Our greatest strength is our greatest weakness. No more true than we're talking about Israel in terms of communications. If I die today, my most famous quote was in the Jerusalem Report about 15 years ago, in which I said, Israelis are missing the PR gene in their DNA. They're just missing it. So I think what we have to do is a little bioengineering, not to be a tocheslicker, okay, pardon the expression, but to absorb emotional intelligence so we understand how other people perceive us and we try to be more likable. Next. So this is positioning stuff. Here it's sort of obvious. Let's pick your stars. If someone wants to ask me about what happened to me in Trancas, California during the questions, I'd be happy to. Don't get thrown. You know, on one hand, we thrive under crisis. Israel's always, there's always another crisis, etc. And Israelis get off on that. And that's part of the magic in Israel. And that's part of the intelligence and the spontaneity of the people, right? But sometimes from a communications point of view, the shit hits the fan and there's no one to be proactive, let alone react. A very tragic example occurred in the Dolphinarium in 2002, where the only Israeli spokesperson that was on the job at that time was the spokesperson in Los Angeles, California. It's the only person on the job. Okay, that's a fact. All right, so that's a sad fact, but we got to do something about that. And I'm sure they've already taken steps. It's time for a makeover. Time for a makeover. I'm a word guy and I'm a content guy more than a graphic guy or necessarily a visual guy, even though I work in the video medium. But what I would suggest here is that we need a makeover. Let me say in sort of a kind of weird way, the place that I'd start with the makeover would be right here. Sandalim. Okay? Bli aniva. No tie. A little bit of a throwback. Yes. Hipper, cooler? Definitely. Revamp our look and feel. Why Israeli sandals, shorts, and open shirts are cool and cheap suits and ties are not.
Hell yes.
Okay? So our politicians, I mean Israeli-American, American-Israeli, our politicians dress in cheap monkey suits, cheap ties, and it looks that way. It looks cheap, and it looks not authentic, and it looks trying too hard, etc. I mean, we're not Italians dressing in Armani's. If we had Armani here, we should wear Armani, but we don't. Let me say what we do have. Imagine this as a photo caption. Aaron, can you read it in? Can you read this?
Sure.
In newscaster style. Pretend this is CNN, and we're introducing a new item.
The Israeli cabinet institutes casual dress. Israel's cabinet today ordered all government ministers to adopt casual dress during the country's notoriously hot summer months. Pictured are Israeli ministers donning Israeli brands, sandals from Navot, and shirts from Polgat. Israel is the first country to adopt such a measure, and is seen by some as an effort to showcase the country's sense of creative entrepreneurialism and a recreation of the early pioneering spirit of Zionism. Photo caption AP, Jerusalem Dateline.
I assure you,
2007.
If they did this, definitely press coverage. Right? We get in the New York Times with a photo op like that. No question about it. I will eat the paper that this is written on.
Who can already start that, basically?
Right. So I'm saying let's revisit it. We're too far away from our roots. Let's get back in touch. Okay, go. Next. Okay. So we talked about positioning. Those are just a couple different ideas. I'm sure you guys can have equally good, if not better ideas in terms of what our rap is, how we tell our story. That's the foundation for communications. Now, where's the foundation housed? Right now it's housed in a place that it's not built on sand, but it's not ideally. Not an ideal kind of structure in which to communicate from, and I'm talking about the bureaucracy. Okay? Part of the problem is that it's very non-holistic. You have people communicating on behalf of ministries and on behalf of their own political agenda. Very few people, almost no people, are telling the big picture. So it's very compartmentalized of someone does finance, someone does tourism, someone does foreign affairs, someone does defense, and of course the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and you see it all the time, okay? So that is one thing structurally that's wrong. The other is a solution to that I call mixed ownership. Now, there are a lot of very smart people that look at the privatization of Israeli companies and say, you know what, Hasbara is so important, we should privatize that. I would argue there's a point in that, but if we think going to Edelman Public Relations in New York City and ceding them control of how Israel communicates, and a girl, a very well-meaning young woman by the name of Christine, who's 26, recent university graduate from the University of Texas, is going to decide how Israel markets itself, we're not in a good situation. So we have to maintain some ownership. There's a role for the government, but I would argue that it has to be mixed. And it has to include outsourcing, and in certain areas it has to include privatization. How would it look? And this is the idea that'll get me fired. I'll never get hired by the foreign ministry again. It's okay. I would love to work with them, by the way. I still want to work with you, even if you don't like me anymore. Business structure replaces government bureaucracy. Israel names first ever national chief marketing officer. A CMO, right? Picture that Israel is the first country to have a CMO. And we structure our communication structure. Chief marketing officer. We structure our communications like a business. That doesn't mean it doesn't have a soul. It doesn't mean that it's not heartfelt. But it's thinking in a competitive way, in an efficient way, in an ROI way. Does anyone know ROI other than our technology friend? Exactly.
Yeah.
So we have creative services. We have merchandising. We have partnership programs. We have cause-related marketing. We have crisis communications, and we have country assignments. They become vertical markets. So we have an Israel's VP of Marketing for Latin America that tells the big picture rather than just nikudati. Okay? Next.